Welcome to Mark D. Maker. Today we're going to be making a hummingbird, a wood carving of a hummingbird with wings inserted, mortise and tenon style like this, and the beak inserted. It's a wood dowel. Makes it stronger so it can tolerate a little bit more. So let's get to carving.
This is the book I used. The patterns in it and the information in it are very helpful. I recommend this book. This is the pattern inside the book that I'll be using for the hummingbird with the wings, which I'll attach these wings later. Now, this is a more advanced process, mortising and tenon these wings in. So for the beginner, I would suggest a solid body with the wings attached, like this guy. So the first thing you want to do is make some Xerox copies of the patterns that are in your book. Make several of them just as backup. And you want to keep these little lines, you'll see these little like perforation lines. You'll want to keep those. This is a new Exacto knife, or it's called an Excel, and it's the first time I've used it. It looks like it's a better quality than Exacto knife. It has 4 jaws that clamp the blade versus the 2 jaws. So I'll give that a try and I'll give you my honest review on it. It also has an adjustment at the end instead of up by the blade. Kind of like that. Now, I want to show you something. This is just a pocket knife, and I did the first 5 years of carving with this and cut myself so many times. See how that blade just folds? There's no lock to it. Do yourself a favor and get a knife like this with the blade doesn't fold, or simply just use an Exacto knife. This is a flex cut. This is a very nice brand. A little pricey, but if you can afford it, it's worth it.
So there's a couple of ways to cut out your pattern. One is a bandsaw, and the other is a scroll saw. The bandsaw is fast, but this blade is exposed, and if you're not used to it, maybe just take your time and do it on a scroll saw. I'm going to do it today on a scroll saw.
Now, if you're doing larger birds like this owl or this full-size red-tailed hawk, you need to use the bandsaw.
So first off, I'll take my block of wood here and I will spray the pattern and try to center. Now I have center lines here on this block of wood. The way I did that is just held the pencil, braced my finger on the side, and just worked my way in with little tiny marks until I found the center. You know, this line matched up with that line, and then you're in the center. And if not, they make rulers that start with 0 in the middle and then go out 1 inch, 1 inch, 2, 2, 3, 3, the center finding rulers. And what I want to do when I glue this down is center this on that center line and try to center this on that center line. And I'm not worried about the wings. The wings are going to be separate. And I'm not worried about the beak because the beak is going to come off, right about there. And we'll put a dowel in here. And it's just much easier than trying to have this very petite thing coming out across the grain, which will snap off like with the breath. So let's spray up this pattern, spray it with spray glue, and we'll get started. So I want to show you something about a scroll saw table that's really important when you're cutting out a pattern, and that's to get the thing level and even so it cuts a straight line. So let's take a look. The table All scroll saw tables are adjustable. You can see how it's moving here. So you need some sort of 90-degree straight edge to where you can sight down and you try to make that as parallel as possible so you get a nice straight cut. And then underneath the table it locks in. All right, so I got the pattern glued onto the block, and you can see I have it pretty much centered. Now all this is going to be waste, and all this is going to be waste, but we will need to take those waste parts and keep it together as a block, and I'll show you why. So as I cut off the pieces, I tape them back together to keep the piece square. By keeping it square, the lines are straight and the pattern will turn out. So at this step, we call this a carving blank. You can buy carving blanks already cut from wood carving stores if you don't have a saw to cut them. The next step is to cut out some wing blanks. So what I did is simply just took the Xerox copy, glued it to a piece of chipboard, cardboard, cut it out, and just duplicated the pattern. And I actually like carving the wings. I will cut out a whole bunch of them and just sit and carve them while I'm watching TV or whatever. Now here's different steps along the way, progressively getting more and more carving and sanding done on it. At this point we're sanding and putting in the mortises to insert the wing into. So here's the wing. It's a 1/4 inch thick basswood, and it will have to be trimmed down to fit inside the mortise, inside those little holes. And depending on the angle, you can get a completely, different look of the wings, whether they're straight up or out. Here's an example of one with the wings out. And you can see they've nice wide spread on them. So here's the stylized version of the bird with the wings attached to its body. It's all one piece. They're just stylized. Did this work with the Dremel. And this is a more realistic one. I actually have it down in my shop for repairs because I have a cat that likes to chew on it. And you can see what a difference it makes when you paint them versus stylized. So here I'm carving the blank, rounding off the corners. First I take it like at a 45-degree angle and just trim it so it's a little more comfortable to hold in my hand. And as you can see, little teeny tiny chips, very small wood chips coming off. Never try to, especially with something this small, force a knife blade into the wood, because you'll just pop a whole piece right off. And then it's firewood.
So you can also see I'm bracing my hand. Whenever you do any kind of carving, you want to brace your hand against something. It gives you better control. So I'm carving up to the center lines that go down the center of the hummingbird body and the side. The side also has a center line. So I'm carving up to, but I'm not cutting away those lines. And you're thinking and carving in round as you're working towards those lines. You want to constantly refer to your reference material, whether it's a pattern, if you're doing your own patterns, photographs. You just want to constantly have that image in front of you so you can refer to it. You'll have a much more accurate finished product if you do. So now you can see the dowel is inserted into the front where the beak would go, and you can see right there where the wings are inserted. They were glued in with an epoxy and then wood putty and then sanded out before I did any kind of detail work. I did a little wood burning on it to give it some detail. And here you can see the curvature of the wings. I always enjoy working on the wings. So here's the two stylized hummingbirds. Their wings with a wide spread. They're both mounted on a stylized base. And here's the perched hummingbird with a realistic paint job. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time.